So thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. If you don't know who I am or who Click is, we provide managed IT support for the not-for-profit sector. Been doing so for about 20 years now, covering everything from day-to-day IT support to cybersecurity consultations and web. Jack, would you be able to go to the next slide for me?
Of course I can.
Perfect, thank you very much. So yes, covering everything from day-to-day managed IT support. So if you've got any sort of projects that you need completing, we cover any of that. At the top of this meeting, we're going to have a Q&A section. So as we go through, if you've got any questions, put them in there. And we've got a couple of minutes at sort of the end of the presentation where myself and Jack will go through. I know Jack's going to have a lot more sort of knowledge on it than me, so it's probably going to be me reading out the questions and Jack answering them. I'm also going to put a link in the chat. So following this, obviously, I know that quite a few people that have joined are currently sort of our customers, but we've got a lot that aren't. So if you want to book in a free IT consultation, it'll be with one of the project managers on our side, and we can sort of talk about your IT needs and sort of what you've currently got and make recommendations. So before I start, I'm just going to quickly introduce Jack. We've got Jack from Datto today. I'm sure a lot of you sort of recognize the name Datto. But potentially not the products or exactly what they're doing. So hopefully we can provide a lot more sort of knowledge on that. And yeah, I'll hand over to Jack.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much, Ollie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here as always. It's always great to work with our partners like Click to jump on and do these sort of webinars and share a bit of information. I am incredibly fortunate in the job that I have at Datto, which is now a company, in that I get to travel the world and attend industry events, cybersecurity related, technology related, managed services related, all sorts of industry events, Microsoft related, and listen to some incredible speakers, people who are far, far more intelligent and knowledgeable than myself. And I take a lot of that information and sort of distill it down, and then I get the chance to sort of, present it to you guys. Okay, it's a really cool part of my job, and it's a cool part of what Datto and Kaseya do as well. That they really try to take that sort of enterprise technology and make it available to SMBs and SMEs. What we're going to have a little bit of a look at today is understanding, I guess, how the threat landscape is changing. So how we've seen things like changes in ransomware, cybersecurity threats, and how that's going to potentially impact your business. But I'm not going to be all doom and gloom. Of course, we want to give you some ways in which you can protect your business from those threats as well. And to get it kicked off and start us off, it's always worth recognizing and acknowledging we are living in a bit of a golden age of tech. Okay, there's some really cool things that are really supporting our businesses and organizations, like the likes of AI, ChatGPT. It's not as bad now, but for the last sort of 18 months, I couldn't go to a conference without sort of the focus really being hijacked by AI. Since the creation of ChatGPT, it's kind of all anyone really wanted to talk about for quite a long time. And it's amazing, and it is being massively, massively helpful to businesses. I think when ChatGPT first went live, I think it took something like 6 months for it to reach 100 million users. And when the most recent version went live a couple of weeks ago, I think it hit 100 million users within like 8 days. So it shows just how aggressively this has changed and is being used by businesses. We've got the likes of virtual reality, which is becoming much more into the mainstream since Apple really adopted it and now have their Apple glasses. And I saw a quite cool photo the other day of someone walking down the street with the Apple glasses on, the Dyson headphones on, the big over here ones, but the Dyson headphones also have an air purifying mask that you can attach to the front. So this person was walking down the street with a pretty much a full face of like cyber technology. It was quite cool to see and interesting to see that is that potentially the direction we're heading in, but we're seeing more and more businesses start to leverage VR as well. And then you've got the likes of quantum computing, which for those who don't really know what that means, it effectively means giving computers like infinitely more computing power. Effectively, things that would have taken us years to do may take us minutes, if not seconds, as and when quantum computing comes available. We kind of understand how it works, we just don't actually really have the components to make it work currently. So these things evolving could really, really change how our businesses run in the future. The unfortunate thing about all these things being really, really positive for us is that anything that benefits us there is someone on the other side of the coin, a bad actor, a cyber criminal, who is looking at how they can start leveraging that tech to benefit them, and in doing so, adversely impact your business. And we see a nice example. Ransomware is a really, really easy example to follow. It's quite cool. Most people probably recognize these as floppy disks. Hopefully no one's using these anymore, although I said I was at a conference 3 weeks ago speaking and asked if anyone was using them to an audience, and about 3 people put their hands up, which was a little bit concerning. But yeah, hopefully nobody in this room is still using floppy disks. The reason they're on the screen is because actually the first recorded ransomware attack was carried out using floppy disks. Okay, and for those that don't know what ransomware attack is where a bit of malicious code gets into your system, locks you out of your system, generally encrypts your files, and tells you you need to pay a ransom to get access to your files again. Okay. First recorded ransomware attack was carried out in 1989 at a World Health Organization conference. Okay. So a biologist handed out 200 floppy disks, told people it was a sort of review of the conference. And they injected it into their workstation. It actually uploaded a bit of a program to their workstation, and actually after they restarted their computer 86 times, they got a pop-up to say that they had to send $100 in an envelope to a PO box in Panama, and then he would send them a code to unlock their computer. All right, that is the first recorded ransomware attack. The gentleman who carried it out was caught because he purchased all 200 floppy disks from the same shop. So if you are going to carry out a ransomware attack using floppy disks, don't purchase them all from the same shop. He claimed he was going to give all the money to charity, but it also came out in the news that he had been rejected from a job at the World Health Organization about 2 months prior to the attack. So you can decide whether he was a good Samaritan just playing about with tech, or whether he was just seeking a bit of revenge. That's the first recorded ransomware attack, and we've seen ransomware evolve quite a bit since then. Mentioned the last one, they had to send money by an envelope to a PO box in Panama, and in 2013 we saw CryptoLocker, which really changed the landscape of ransomware attacks, because that's when we started to see cryptocurrency be used to pay ransoms. This is when it sort of turned from a bit more of a niche, one-off individuals kind of attacking businesses to becoming a business in and of itself, because cryptocurrency made it so much harder to track who's potentially carrying out these attacks. That's the whole point of cryptocurrency. It's supposed to be fairly anonymous. It gets used a lot on the dark web, and that really allowed effectively cyber criminal businesses to start functioning purely around providing or trying to infect businesses with ransomware. Okay, and that was a CryptoLocker attack that started happening in 2013, and we saw it massively explode off the back of that. We then had the likes of WannaCry in 2017, which most people on this call probably recognize, because that's the strain of ransomware that took down the NHS. Okay, again, this was a big change in ransomware, because WannaCry was the first self-spreading ransomware. Before, with the likes of CryptoLocker, someone had to get into your system and then deploy the payload, whereas with WannaCry, it had a way to self-spread itself. In the first 24 hours, WannaCry infected over 300,000 computers in 96 different countries. And unfortunately, a large chunk of that was in the NHS in the UK and caused a lot of issues there. Some other interesting facts about the WannaCry attack is actually the US government accused a North Korean hacking collective of being the ones that created the WannaCry attack. They even went a step further and accused them of creating the WannaCry attack on permission from the North Korean government, because they wanted the funds to try and cover a deficit in their budget. All right, so not only were we seeing this as a massive cyber attack that affected hundreds of thousands, if not millions of individuals globally, but it was actually state backed, if you believe the accusations. So really concerning. That was when we saw another big step, and now we've seen a sort of jump again, and historically it was very much server and workstation focused. Now we're seeing it be cloud focused. Okay, and there's things called ransom cloud now, which are specifically targeting your emails, where they will get into your emails generally via some form of phishing attack, where you'll not intentionally give it permission to emails, and then it has the ability to encrypt all your emails and ask for a ransom to give them back. These things are expanding and constantly evolving. We've seen massive change, obviously, from the initial one being carried out on floppy disks right the way through to now what a lot of people would have probably previously seen as being very safe cloud environments, now being very vulnerable to these sorts of attacks. And the bad actors are taking it a step farther, and they're doing what we call double extortion, where not only are they holding your data, but then they're also saying, like, well, if you don't pay us the ransom by X date, we're going to release your data online. And there's websites that you can go to where you can actually see by country some of the current ransomware attacks that are being double extorted. Okay, and some good actors are in here looking at this stuff, trying to save any of their competitors around here. So there's a potential for them to gain a competitive advantage because maybe their competitor's been infected and their data is going to be leaked online. It's really concerning that this is something that's happening. And then we see, a lot of questions around, well, if this is happening, why don't the police sort of take action on it? I guess current sort of one of the largest providers of ransomware is a company called Lockbit, a cyber criminal organization. Their website was taken down for their double encryption on the 22nd of February 2024 by a multinational police effort. Okay, it took an awful lot of effort to take down their website on the 22nd of February 2024. It was hugely celebrated. That website was back up again on the 26th of February. All right, these things are very, very hard to police. They operate in the dark corners of the internet where there's not much sort of your average police organization can do about it. So it's really, really hard to stop this stuff once it starts getting out there. And these guys are getting even smarter. They're starting to leverage AI for this stuff as well. I mentioned, look, it's benefiting your business, but bad actors are also looking to use it to benefit them. Currently, there's two forms of AI cyber attack. There's AI enabled. This is where you're going to have to forgive my Northern Irish accent here. AI powered cyber attacks. I really have to concentrate to say the word power. But thankfully, we haven't seen AI powered cyber attacks yet. It's something that was predicted in the sort of back end of 2024. But AI powered cyber attacks is whereby an AI is able to carry out a ransom attack or malware attack from start to finish. So it's able to run every sort of aspect of that attack. Currently, we're not seeing that. We're seeing it be used for aspects of ransomware attack, the likes of people are feeding code through AI to change it slightly, but hopefully have it produce the same effect, because your standard AV or your standard antivirus and even sort of things that are generally protecting your email, they're looking for what we would describe as like known bits of code. So they're looking for something that makes sense to them, something they recognize as being a threat, and that's what they want to stop. What bad actors realize, actually, if they feed this stuff through AI, that maybe can change it enough that the AV doesn't recognize that as being a normal threat, so it just lets it through, and then it still wreaks havoc on the other side. And some concerning aspects of that. In fact, ChatGPT, when it first went live, luckily it was a white hat hacker. So white hat hacker is someone who hacks for a positive reason. Went on to and asked it to list every known banking exploit in banking software, which it did. He then asked it to write code to exploit all these known exploits, which it did. You can't actually do that stuff with ChatGPT now. They've changed how it interacts, but that's an example again of how it can be used to enable cyber attacks, but currently isn't fully powering them. And I guess the next question from yourselves would be, well, if all these sort of bad, cyber attacks out there, who are the bad guys that are carrying these out? And most people, be it through movies or anything, have this idea of what we call a paradigm offender. And that paradigm offender is that guy sat in his mum or dad's spare room or basement or attic, surrounded by energy drinks and packets of crisps, and maybe there's a rat or a mouse rustling away in the corner. That's sort of what movies have sort of instilled with us of what these sort of bad actors look like. And whilst there are individuals out there like that, in reality, there's so many more different forms in which they come in. And a couple of very simple examples here are things like hacking collectives and hacktivists, which you probably recognize as the likes of Anonymous, maybe you've heard of before, who large-scale hacking collectives. IoT hackers is something we'll touch on in a little bit. Ransomware developers, it's worth noting that there's people out here that make a full-scale business of doing ransomware as a service, where they can provide you with sort of ransomware, an email list of people to send it to, and even a crypto wallet to receive the ransoms into, and you can purchase that for as little as £35. There's nation state actors out there, the likes of Russia, that when they invaded Ukraine, they launched a large-scale cyber attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, about 24 hours before they tried to invade. Organized crime, again, we'll touch on it a little bit, but insider threats, I think, is a really worthwhile one talking on. We're seeing this pop up more and more of people within organizations being approached, being asked to loan out their credentials, essentially, and being offered large sums of money to say, hey, look, just give us your username and password for 24 hours. You can change it after that, not really realizing the damage that could potentially do to an organization. But we're also seeing people around organizations and within their supply chains being approached. And a really easy example for probably the people on this call is, you're probably the business owners or senior people within your business. How often are you working early or working late in your business when maybe a cleaner comes in to sort of clean? Would you recognize, most of the time you probably get up and you're like, look, you have a cup of, you clean away, I'm going to go have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Would you recognize if they swapped out a wire in the back of your computer? You've now got wires that look exactly like sort of iPhone charging cables, any sort of wire you can imagine that have transmitters in them. You've also got the ability to, or maybe download that data onto a pen drive. Would you know if that stuff was happening? It's just little things to bear in mind. Script kiddies, I think the youngest person globally still to be prosecuted is about 12 years old for cybercrime. I think this person to be recognized as a white hat hacker, so someone who's hacked for positive means, is a 5-year-old in the US who wanted to play Grand Theft Auto on his dad's Xbox, but there was a parental lock in place. And this 5-year-old actually worked out a way to break the parental lock on Xbox. His dad came home, found him playing his Grand Theft Auto 5, wasn't super thrilled, reached out to Xbox, and they credited the kid as a white hat hacker. He's still on their website as a software developer. They send him a bunch of vouchers and things like that. You've got hacktivists, again, sort of mentioned, similar to hacking collectives, mobile malware developers, mobile malware. This stuff can be sort of developed by anyone and can be delivered, from iPhones, from Android phones, on the go now. It's not someone that has to be sat at a desk to do this. But I sort of mentioned large-scale criminal organizations, and that's what we want to talk about very briefly, because these are 3 large-scale criminal organizations, or cyber criminal organizations to be precise: Conti, Ryuk, and TrickBot. You may have heard of any of the number of them because they have strains of ransomware or malware named after them. Conti in particular, one that we know quite a lot about, they're the one that took down the Irish NHS, so the Irish HSE, I think in 2022 it was, 2020. And we know quite a lot about Conti because they're quite a large multinational organization. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, Conti as an organization came out in very vocal support of Russia. Understandably, their Ukrainian members weren't thrilled about this, and so leaked a couple hundred pages of documentation online about how Conti runs as a cyber criminal organization. Okay. They had offices, they had HR departments, they were sending their top performers on rewards trips to the Bahamas. They were adversely impacting their worst performers. Usually when doing this presentation live, I'd ask the audience for a guess at what they were spending on their salary and what a cyber criminal organization was spending on salary per year in 2022. And obviously, I'm not going to ask you guys to shout out, we're on a webinar, but the answer is $20 million is what Conti were spending on their salary alone in 2022. They had overhead infrastructure bills as well, because they had offices, they had boardrooms, they had their sort of be entrepreneurial, be disruptive slogans on the wall. They had teams that were so heavily siloed that they didn't realize that they were working for cyber criminal organizations. They were working on a specific bit of code. Like these are huge organizations functioning very, very professionally. And what's really interesting is that these guys really want to be known as the good bad guys, because their business ceases to function if they become untrustworthy. So they have a very, very helpful helpline. If you get hit with ransomware and you want to pay the ransom, you call them up, they will talk you through it. They will walk you through it step by step. They will tell you which crypto wallet to use. They will give you the best exchange rate. They will potentially negotiate with you. They actually have gone to the extent we've seen of bringing in business analysts if they infect a large business, so the likes of maybe Garmin that was hit during COVID, to understand what the correct ransom is for business of that size. It's mental how professionally these guys are running. And then what we actually saw at the back end of 2022 was Conti, Ryuk, and TrickBot merge and become a cyber criminal conglomerate. And that's why I've got that sort of logo in the middle, because they became an organization called Wizard Spider. So, I mean, I've spent some of that 20 million salary and maybe a marketing team and rebrand, but that's what they've gone down the line of. Okay, but these are bad actors, and there's insinuations that these guys are state backed, and it's concerning. Okay, but these organizations exist, and one of the key things that we get is, so we're talking about all these threats and how they exist out there. And you're probably sat there, and for most people, and don't want to put words in your mouth, you probably think, look, that's fine, but I'm probably not the target for these guys. This isn't going to happen to me. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. As you can see here in the statistics, like these cyber attacks are massively, it makes up sort of 30-40% of their business is targeting enterprise and SMBs. In the Conti data leaks, they had their sales team, their attack team, split into two sections: the top 20% targeting enterprise, and the majority 80% targeting SMBs. You're right in an extent that these guys aren't specifically after you. They're not. They're after everybody. They're after every single business that exists out there. And you're probably the easier target because those enterprise organizations are maybe spending millions of pounds on their cybersecurity. SMBs just can't afford that budget, so they're easier targets. They can infect hundreds, if not thousands, of SMBs at the time it takes them to infect one enterprise, and make more money off the SMBs and SMEs. You guys are the target, unfortunately, for these guys. It's just how it works. You might not be the guys that make the news. Your name might not be the one that makes the news, but you're still just as bad a target. And again, don't want to be all doom and gloom, but the concerning thing is that it's not just the bad guys we have to worry about. As sort of mentioned with insider threats, sometimes it's not even malicious acts inside our organization. Sometimes it's just accidental acts. And here we have a gentleman worked for the Hawaii Space Agency. You might remember in 2018 that there was a missile threat that went out to the whole of Hawaii, saying that there was an inbound missile. This gentleman worked for that organization that had the ability to launch that text message down to Hawaii. This is a newspaper article that went out about 3 weeks before that missile alert went out. Whilst they claimed it was someone with fat fingers like myself who accidentally hit the button, how are your Where's Wally skills? Can anyone spot the potential issue in this photo? I'll give you a second or two to look. But if you spot those post-it notes at the bottom of the screens there, this went out in a newspaper article. This gentleman had the potential, or had access to potentially launch that cyber attack or that missile alert. You see there's a password to his system there. Tip to the bottom of the screen in a photo that went out in a newspaper article. It's not just relaxed Hawaiians that we have to be concerned about though. Here we have a member of the royal family sat in a military base. Again, this went out in a newspaper article. And how's your Where's Wally skills on this one? Give you a second. You can see Ollie frantically scanning the screen there.
It's got the password on the wall there, isn't it? Is that correct?
It is, yeah. What looks from a distance to be Wi-Fi login details is actually not just a password, but username and password to a military computer that went out in a newspaper article. Right, these are some of the concerns and threats. These are out there. It's not just our internal guys. It's accidents like that. And here we've got the cast of Ocean's 11. I don't know how many Ocean's movies there's been since Ocean's 11. I feel like, I don't know if we're like on Ocean's 20 or something now. The first one, personally my favorite. They robbed a casino. They robbed a casino using an underground drill. They used an EMP. They used camera trickery. They used an acrobat. They used lasers. They used misdirection, all sorts of stuff to rob a casino. In real life, all it took is what you see in this photo here. And obviously you've got a computer there, you've got a Nintendo Switch, you've got a phone, you've got speakers, you've got some power sockets. I did have someone shout, did someone get really pissed on that bottle of gin and give away the secrets? No, that's not the answer. It is that big glaring light up bit in the background, the fish tank. In a casino in Vegas had a wireless thermometer in its fish tank in the hotel lobby, which someone noticed, was able to use to gain access to the casino network, move laterally across the network, and stole over $10 million of high roller data. It's as simple as that, and that's what we call like an IoT hacker that we mentioned in that first bit. Internet of Things, they're able to see something connect to the network and use that to connect to the network. Right? It's scary. You might have heard stories about law firms in London that had similar things happen with a wireless kettle that someone brought into the office because they wanted to get the kettle boiling before they got to the office. Right? These things happen as well. Again, it's not people being malicious. It's people just trying to make their lives easier and making mistakes as a result. And then we've got the idea that data living in a cloud is infallible. All right, and it's not. Okay, data living in the cloud is just as likely to be attacked as anywhere else. Data living in cloud just means that bit of hardware that was running in your office is now running in someone else's office, someone else's data center. They're looking after it itself. I would like to caveat the fact that this survey in the bottom left was carried out with Americans back in 2012. About 5,000 Americans, and just over the majority thought that stormy weather could affect cloud computing. I'd like to think we've come a long way since then, but it's just a reminder that cloud computing does just mean that bit of hardware sat somewhere else. And with whether it be Azure, AWS, Google, Oracle, we've seen a mass move to cloud computing and a mass move to the likes of Teams because of COVID massively sped up that. We were seeing that move anyway, but with the need for hybrid and remote working, it changed the landscape more or less overnight. And it's not just Microsoft. Google have a fairly similar market share when it comes to Microsoft Teams and Google Workspace. They're pretty similar. I'm probably going to refer to Microsoft from here on out just because it's easier, but anything I'm talking about Microsoft, Google is exactly the same. Okay, and we've seen mass uptake of this stuff, which has made it a threat and has made it a target. You saw that bit of ransomware now that is specifically targeting Microsoft 365 and Gmail accounts. Okay, and when I say Gmail accounts, I mean Google Workspace accounts. And we're seeing that actually a lot of the companies that are moving to this environment, 1 in 3 are consistently losing data out of these apps. And that's actually gone up a little bit now. It's closer to about 50%. About 13 to 20% of that data loss is being caused by bad actors and sort of hackers, viruses, things getting into the system. 7% is being caused by malicious deletions, maybe someone you fired or someone, an insider threat deciding that they want to delete something because they're on their way out the door and that they wanted to cause a bit of havoc to the business. Actually, the vast majority, nearly 50%, is just being caused by accidental deletions. People deleting a file, deleting a folder, deleting a SharePoint without necessarily realizing they've done so. And the issue is, again, people consider cloud environments to be infallible, and it's fine, it's in the cloud, I'll get it back if I delete it. It's not how it happens. Microsoft and Google both have a retention policy in that they will hold a copy of most of your data for about 45 days, but it doesn't guarantee you getting back, and it's only 45 days. Anything outside of that is gone. And that's because they operate a shared responsibility model, which means they look after the hardware. Okay, exactly what we talked about. That bit of hardware that was running in your office is now running somewhere else, and they look after that. You look after hardware failure, software failure, natural disaster and power outages. Everything on the right-hand side of the screen is your responsibility. It'd be human error, programming, malicious insiders, hackers, viruses, that's all falls on you. And if something slips through the crack, Microsoft aren't going to help you with that. And if you do delete a file and it gets outside of the 45 days, that's not their issue either. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, when it comes to Microsoft and Google, we are minute little tadpoles in their very, very vast ocean of clients. Okay, try call up Microsoft, try call up Google and get a file back. It's not a pleasant experience. It's really not. You can spend hours on the phone just to even try to locate your account. It's really, really nasty thing to have to do. And Microsoft have recognized this, and they've gone a step further and added to their SLA to suggest you need to put a third-party backup in place. In section 6.2b of their SLA there says we recommend regularly backing up with a third-party backup. These guys have recognized this as a threat. And so the reason I tell you all this, obviously, I mentioned that we're not going to sort of talk to you about this without some sort of solution, and excuse my very crude diagram here. Like to Click provide a great solution to this. Okay, an offering that means that you don't have to go through Microsoft or Google to get your data back, and you're getting that extra layer of protection. It replicates your data from Microsoft to Google to a third-party data center, and then again to another offsite data center. Replicates that data 3 times a day, 8-hour intervals. So think about how many emails you send on a daily basis. If you're only backing that up once a day, you lose half a day's worth of data. Potentially that's a huge amount of emails you could have sent. right, or a huge amount of data change you could have made in SharePoint or Teams or OneDrive or Google Workspace. Being able to back it up 3 times a day is a massive, massive benefit. There's not really many solutions out there that offer that. Click work with one that do, which is incredible to see. And then actually it gets replicated from that primary data center to a secondary offsite data center once a day as well. So if anything was to happen to Google or Microsoft, you've got a copy of your data. So they're not even if it's just to happen to your own individual tenant, but if it happened on a larger scale to Google or Microsoft, you've got a copy of it replicated somewhere else. And if anything was to happen to that primary data center, you've got another copy of it somewhere else again. Okay, so really, really important to see. And one thing to bear in mind with this is like you've got 3 sort of options walking away from this webinar. Fortunately, the vast majority of people probably walk away not really doing a huge amount. So 40% of people will see walk away from this and not change their actions. The concern about that is that this is the home insurance policy everybody wants after the house is burnt down. If you get to the stage that you need this, it's probably too late. You have to be proactive in your approach to this. So I know Ollie said he'd put a link in the chat, or if you want to reach out to Ollie or any of the team at Click, I strongly recommend you do so. Even if you don't go ahead with it, just understand more about it, understand how it can benefit your specific business or how it's going to relate to your business. This is not a heavy cost option. This is incredibly cheap for what it offers. You can work with the sort of native recovery systems within Google or 365, but as I mentioned, they're not automated. It's a retention policy, not a backup. It's time consuming, and ultimately Google and Microsoft don't really care. All right, you're just not going to move the needle for them. Or you can sort of step into the ring with the likes of Click and make sure that they put something in place that's going to help you out with this long term. All right, hopefully that hasn't been too much sort of scary stuff for a Thursday morning. Hopefully you find some really good information in that, and I really appreciate your time. But I just want to remind you that like this is a bit of an asymmetrical battlefield. Okay, unfortunately, the time we live in, you've got to protect a million different ways into your business. Obviously, we're talking about sort of the cloud access right now, but you could also, it's networking, it's endpoints, it's servers, it's workstations. You've got to protect it all. It's my full-time job to understand the threats out there. I travel the world trying to understand the threats, and it's nearly impossible for me to stay on top of it. So it's like, I can only imagine what it's like for individuals where this isn't their full-time job. Fortunately, again, that's why organizations like Click exist. So they can really step in and try help you with that and take a bit of that load off you. You've got to protect a million ways into your business. That bad actor just has to find that one chink in the armor, that one weak link in the chain.
Thank you very much, Jack, for joining us today, and hopefully everyone gained a lot of information from that.
Yeah, perfect. Like, if anyone does want to reach out to myself or Ollie and ask any questions, please feel free to do so. But thank you very much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.